The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering Co-op Advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, Live Music Thursday brings the arts into your week early as Stephen Weiner joins us to celebrate the release of his latest album, How Lucky You Are.
And we'll hear how Berkshire Agricultural Ventures is helping farmers markets and more in their area stretch SNAP dollars with their Market Match Fund, which is in the middle of a fundraising campaign.
And although we missed our Capitol Hill correspondent, Congressman Jim McGovern, at 413 Day this past weekend,
to be honest, there's a lot that's been occupying his time as of late, a lot of which kind of pertains to us in particular.
Greetings.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, you know, the hits just keep on coming.
I know. Everything's beautiful.
I love that as a mantra for you.
In its own way.
Yeah. We got a bunch of listener questions, so we'll get right to it.
Right.
It's time for our weekly conversation with U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, the ranking member of the Rules Committee, Worcester's own Congressman Jim McGovern. According to The Atlantic, the constitutional crisis is here, reads the headline. Trump administration only pretending to comply with Supreme Court on the matter of a Maryland man it deported erroneously. I know that the number 4 Senate Democrat, Cory Booker, and Senator Chris Van Hollen were organizing trips to El Salvador to meet with the government officials and visit this Maryland man who was wrongly deported. I believe that was happening yesterday. I believe they did not gain access to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, but there are growing concerns around his safety and well-being. Chris from Greenfield wants to know, what are you doing to get Kilmar back? What are you doing for Ozturk, the Tufts student, who in a breaking news story is not granted bond from a Louisiana immigration judge, calling her both a flight risk and a danger to the community? Do these kidnappings, Chris wants to know, show that a government that places all of its enforcement powers in the hands of the executive branch is a fundamental mistake and needs to be abandoned? And, he adds, when the legislature gives its power to the executive and refuses to take it back, is it time to abandon the legislature?
Well, Chris is right. The legislative branch has basically turned its back on its constitutional responsibilities. The Republican leadership in both the House and the Senate are afraid of Donald Trump and Elon Musk money. So there's no oversight hearings. They're not allowing us to bring legislation to the floor to try to remedy some of these situations. That's unfortunate, but this is what happens. Elections have consequences, and this is one of the consequences of the last election. That doesn't mean we don't keep on trying. That doesn't mean we don't try to see if we can persuade 4 Republicans in the House to join with us on some of these things, and we will continue to do that. In the meantime, the litigation strategy needs to be pursued. I mean, there's over 100 suits that have been filed against this administration on a variety of things, including with regard to Mr. Garcia and others who have been sent to El Salvador, basically to a concentration camp. I know a little bit about El Salvador. I've spent a lot of time there. And when I was down there last November, I met with a number of families whose children have been basically put into these prisons. They don't have access to their kids. The kids haven't been charged with anything. Some of the families were told that their sons had died of natural causes. I mean, 18 to 23-year-old. Their sons were in terms of age, and this is a brutal concentration camp where people get tortured regularly. What was unfortunate about Senator Van Hollen not being able to get access to him is that we don't know if he's alive or not. I mean, there's no proof of life. We don't know whether he's been tortured. We don't know what is happening to him. And again, we are paying El Salvador, your tax dollars are paying El Salvador to do all of this. So in any event, I think the Atlantic is right. I think we are at a constitutional crisis. I feel that way. I'm not sure a majority of my colleagues are quite there yet, but I think they will be getting there shortly. There are more court decisions that came down yesterday, again, compelling the administration to bring this guy back. We will see what happens. I'm also worried about the students that are being apprehended at our colleges and universities. I was at UMass Amherst yesterday. We talked about this. I have a letter that I sent to Rubio and to Kristi Noem. He's the Secretary of State, and she's the Secretary of Homeland Security, demanding answers and trying to figure out what is the appeal process for those whose visas have been revoked. And again, I mean, the stuff that you're seeing is stuff that you would expect to see in Russia or China or North Korea, but not here. This is not our country. And I did 3 town halls yesterday, one in Whately, one at UMass, and one in Holden. And, my plea to everybody is get involved, get out and protest, because it's going to be a movement of people that ultimately put an end to this.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, and speaking of protests, there's another weekend slated of protests this Saturday. And at the same time, circulating on social media is this outline of what seems in some ways to be a conspiratorial notion about what may happen at these ongoing protests. And yet, given all of the things that have been proposed or enacted by the Trump administration, perhaps it is not too conspiratorial. And it has to do with the next question that comes from Donovan Lee, who is an organizer for Veterans for Peace, Chapter 413. Donovan says that this comes really from the whole chapter, just with Donovan as the vehicle. With the advisory committee President Trump has convened to advise him on using the Insurrection Act of 1807, and this is where the notions of the conspiracy are circulating around this act, to deploy the U.S. military domestically, expected to make its recommendation on April 20th, which is this Sunday. What are you going to do to ensure that the Massachusetts National Guard cannot be used against our communities? Are you in communication with the governor to this end? More broadly, are you working with your fellow representatives on a plan of how to respond to this reality, as he calls it? And if so, what options are you pursuing to stop Trump from using the U.S. military against civilians? Is it possible to activate the National Guard under the state to prevent federalization activation by the National Guard?
Yeah.
Is this really going to happen on Sunday, I guess, is the other big question, too. Do you believe it to happen?
I don't think it's going to happen this weekend. And I also don't believe that the governor would ever allow the Massachusetts National Guard to be deployed against our own people because they're engaged in freedom of speech. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. But to the bigger question, would Trump try to utilize the military against U.S. civilians? And the answer to that, I have to say, honestly, this is not a conspiracy theory. He might try to do that. I mean, we don't know. I mean, he tried to do that during his first term, and General Milley intervened and prevented it. But the way this guy thinks, who knows? And at that point, I would hope that members of the military would not comply with something that is totally unconstitutional. Donald Trump thinks of himself as a king or a dictator. He cozies up to authoritarian dictators because he wants to be one. He wants everything to go his way. And if it doesn't, you're the enemy. I'm grateful to Harvard for standing up against the administration. They're going to take a hit, but they're doing the right thing because academic freedom, quite frankly, is more important, than federal grants. I think if other universities and colleges do the same thing, we can weather this storm and kind of get back to a place where we respect academic freedom. And we're not going to have government police monitoring every thing you post on social media, every course you take, every demonstration you show up to. I mean, this is chilling, what's happening here. I think it's totally appropriate to wonder what he might do with the U.S. military. But again, members of our military swore an oath to the Constitution. And, I believe that, I hope that many of them would not comply with an unconstitutional order.
Another listener question from J.J. White saying, the Trump administration just canceled $90 million of disaster prevention funding for Massachusetts. Taxpayers in the Commonwealth pay more in federal taxes than we get back from the federal government because we subsidize poorer, and J.J. says, red states. Which federal agency or law allows this to happen? Even though Democrats do not control Congress, can members propose bills? If so, is there any merit in seeking to change the formula as a resistance strategy to generate media and public support? And also ask the congressman if he could organize other blue states to withhold federal tax dollars in response to federal cuts. If Trump doesn't like it, let them sue, says JJ. Fight fire with fire. What do you think about that strategy?
Yeah. So I understand the rationale of that approach. The question comes down to, what happens if they freeze all federal monies that come into the state, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Again, I mean, we need to think this scenario out and to see how it would play. But when we talk about federal resources coming to the state, we're also talking about checks that are cut in Washington that come directly to individuals here in Massachusetts and in other states. But he's right. I mean, we do more than our fair share to help others in this country. And the idea that the administration is reacting the way it is and seemingly trying to punish states like Massachusetts, we need a strategy to push back in a way where it makes a difference and where this administration feels it. But I'll tell you that the cuts that are happening are not just happening in blue states, they're also happening in red states as well. And as I began talking about the importance of protest and dissent, I'm telling you, you can see some cracks in Republicans because of people showing up and people protesting and people going to rallies. There's a letter circulating by some Republicans saying they're threatening to withhold their vote on a budget reconciliation bill if it cuts Medicaid benefits. And if you listen to Chuck Grassley's really painful town hall that he did the other day, in addition to the nonsense on, trying to justify denying people due process, one of the things he says in that town hall is that, maybe they need to rethink their tax cuts for billionaires. Again, who knows whether that leads to anything, but the fact that they seem to be backtracking a little bit on Medicaid cuts and tax cuts for billionaires, that is a direct result of people power. That is a direct result of the protests. That is a direct result of the pressure that Republican members of Congress are feeling. And if we can get 4 Republicans to join with us on anything, we can stop that. We can stop things. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom. I want people to know that I think the pressure is beginning to have an impact.
Speaking with U.S. Congressman Jim McGovern, McGoverning with McGovern. Question from one of the organizers behind Demilitarize Western Mass on an issue that they have long cared about and have even protested in front of your office about, but has fallen off of the front page of newspapers. Would you ask Congressman McGovern if he would make continuing repeated public calls for the U.S. to stop shipping weapons enabling the genocide against the Palestinian people, regardless of the majority support in Congress to send the weapons? As I mentioned, this story is not getting as much attention with all of the tumult that's been going on in the courts and the cuts in the U.S. Where does this issue stand? Where do the Democrats stand on this issue in Congress currently?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes. I've joined on a number of resolutions of disapproval to protest the weapons that have just recently been sent to the Netanyahu government, including sending 2-ton bombs that they're using against people in Gaza. Yeah, no, we're being hit with a million things a day, so there are a lot of important things happening in the United States and the world that we're not talking about because everything is so overwhelming. But this is an important issue. And again, it also goes to the issue of whether we care about human rights. And no matter what you think about the situation in the Middle East, I think we're at a point now where I think everybody needs to step up and to say, enough is enough. I think Republicans are lockstep behind whatever the president's doing. And unfortunately, I think a majority of Democrats are too. But, again, the situation there is getting worse and worse by the day. And it's tragic.
The folks that work here at NEPM, my bosses included, are very interested in this story. The White House is going to ask Congress to cut $9 billion in funds, including for NPR, PBS, and lumped into that USAID, which we talked about several weeks ago, right, with those major cuts. $9 billion would be clawed back in what's called rescission. How is this rescission different than the cuts that have happened, say, with the USDA programs that have gone out with contracts to the farmers locally in our area? And there's rumor that the Democrats have a strategy that will be unveiled a little bit later this month as to how to push back on this proposed rescission. Can you tell us about what you know about this?
I don't know the exact way they would try to implement it because they haven't shared it with us, the language. But look, they clearly hate any media that doesn't regularly say you're perfect, you're wonderful, you're great. And again, this is, right out of an authoritarian playbook. He doesn't like PBS. He doesn't like any, public radio. He doesn't like any news media that is not totally beholden to him. And we will be unveiling a strategy about pushing back. And again, I think there are a majority of people in this country, including some Republicans and, a lot of independents who understand the importance of a free press and also are upset by the fact that he thinks it's appropriate to interfere in what is reported on TV. I mean, he does press conferences every day and he dominates the media. In fact, I would argue he dominates too much of the media, and I wish the media wouldn't cover every damn thing he says. But the bottom line is, if we start getting into censorship and punishing media outlets that report the news that are objective or that report both sides, boy, I mean, we're in real trouble.
It's interesting that with PBS in particular, and even with NPR, that some of the folks that may push back from the Republican side are in the more rural states where they don't have a robust media, and sometimes this public broadcasting is the only broadcasting that they have. So are you hearing at all from these rural Republicans about their take on NPR and PBS? Because it would take just a simple majority in both chambers for this rescission to happen. What is the likelihood from what you hear from your colleagues that may benefit from having public broadcasting because they don't have big metropolises and big newspapers and big TV stations?
Sometimes people don't know how good they have it until it's taken away from them. I think the challenge between now and the time we have a vote is to make sure that communities are informed. And we got to do our part, to make sure that members of rural states understand the value of these media outlets to their constituents. And look, I do think we have an opportunity to stop some of this stuff. All we need is 4 Republicans. That's it. We get 4 Republicans, we can stop anything. And I've got to believe that there are 4 Republicans who understand the value of PBS and public broadcasting.
I have been asking you as the final question over these last few weeks, something that's given you hope. I'll just pause briefly to say one thing that gave me hope was how many great people came out to celebrate where we live on 413 Day last Sunday, at which point I announced my 17-year-old is going to college in your hometown, Congressman McGovern. He's going to Clark in Worcester.
Oh, I look forward to seeing him more than I see you. But Clark's an incredible university. I love it, and he's going to love it. And Worcester's a great city.
Yeah, you're going to have to walk me through all the good dive bars and show me your parents' liquor store there. So that
I will. I'll be happy to do that. But no, he'll have a great time, and I know a lot of the professors. I know the president. They're good people there, and it's a very active campus, and people care about the world, and I really appreciate that about Clark.
I can't wait to get to know it better. What is giving you hope this week, Congressman?
Yesterday we did a town hall with seniors in Whately. I did a town hall with students at UMass, and then town hall with local residents in Holden. And, the people showing up to some of these things are showing up for the first time to political events. And that gives me great hope. People understand what's at stake, and people are showing up. And I think, again, as I said earlier, some of these events are putting pressure on Republicans, and you're starting to hear them say things a little bit differently. Whether it will translate into them voting differently remains to be seen. But people power, is important. And, people are more important and more powerful than the people in power. And we can't forget that. So it was a long day yesterday, but I felt really hopeful when I went to bed. And, I think we can get through this. It's going to be tough, but we just have to keep on showing up, and we have to keep on fighting. And if we do, we will be successful. We can't give up. And as I was saying in Whately yesterday, sometimes people in our country want instant gratification and instant results. We're not going to fix this in a day or a week or a month. This is a fight that's going to take us a few years to get through. But I think we're up to it. And then let's hope we never see the likes of what we're seeing now ever again.
U.S. Congressman from the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts, Worcester's own Congressman Jim McGovern joins us every week for McGoverning with McGovern. If you've got a question for the Congressman like Nick or Donovan or Chris did this week, send it our way, thefab413@nepm.org, and I'll ask it on your behalf. Thanks so much, Congressman.
All the best.
Up next, stretching our agricultural dollars in the Berkshires with Rebecca Busansky, Executive Director of Berkshire Agricultural Ventures, as she breaks down for us the utility and import of their Market Match program.
And we'll hear brand new music from Northampton native but Brooklyn-based Stephen Weiner and his new album.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
I was just on some call this morning where they were saying how like people referring to Western Mass as just Hampshire, Hamden, and Franklin. It's like, hello, we're here, the Berkshires.
Yeah.
It's funny because so many Berkshire people don't believe that we're Western Mass in Hampshire, Hamden, and Franklin.
I know. It's
we're
true.
like, what
It's
else
true.
are we
It
supposed
does go
to
both
be?
ways.
Yeah. And then we all disparage Worcester. What are you guys even thinking? Solidly central.
It's in the middle. It's not Western Mass. It's its own animal.
Yeah.
That is underrepresented,
Yeah,
but that's a whole other conversation. Berkshire Agricultural Ventures supports the development and viability of local farms and food businesses in order to build a thriving and equitable local food economy.
Founded in 2017, BAV, as we shall call it, provides flexible loans, microgrants, and technical assistance to local farmers and food entrepreneurs to grow their businesses and support the health and resilience of the local food system.
BAV works across 4 counties in 3 states, Berkshire County and Massachusetts, Litchfield County in Connecticut, and Columbia and Dutchess counties in New York.
And right now, they're running a campaign to raise funds for snap matching at area farmers markets through the end of the month of April.
To tell us more about this campaign is Rebecca Busansky, Executive Director for Berkshire Agricultural Ventures.
Thanks for joining us, Rebecca.
Thank you, Khalees and Monty. Great to be here.
This program is something that we have talked a little bit about on this side of the mountains, on the Berkshires, with friends from CISA and other farmers market type organizations. But this is a relatively new matching program, I believe, for BAV, which is also a relatively new organization in the grand scheme of things. Talk to us about how the program works for people to support it through this month of April.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. It's great to be here and get to talk about the Market Match Fund. So the Market Match Fund, basically BAV does the fundraising to provide the match at 10 Berkshire area farmers markets and 1 in Litchfield County that provides SNAP users an additional $30 for the $30 that they spend at farmers markets. So essentially an extra $60 at the farmers markets. And this applies to all SNAP eligible products, everything from meat and dairy, eggs, honey, as well as produce. So it's a little different than the Healthy Incentives Program, but it is another opportunity to really be able to boost SNAP users' spending at farmers markets. So it's a pretty important program. This is our 4th season we're heading into, and we know with everything that's happening at the federal level and even the state level with Healthy Incentives Program that SNAP use is going to get cut, HIP usage has gotten cut, and that it makes this Market Match Fund even more important. And while we fundraise for it all year long, during the month of April, we are running a public campaign, almost like crowdsourcing, where you can go onto our website, you can donate there, you can mail funds in order to build up the funds to be able to provide this SNAP matching to farmers market. And this year we are providing more funds than ever before. Looking at the federal and state landscape, we know how much it's going to be necessary for our low-income shoppers at the markets. We know how important this program is for our farmers. This is a huge economic development boost. Some of our farmers have reported that this could make up 30 to 50% of their market sales. And so this really, serves both purposes really well. And because of that, and from what we've heard from our farmers market managers as well, we'll be putting out more money than ever before to the 10 farmers markets with the help of our communities.
Not to besmirch our neighbors to the west, but New York doesn't have a program similar to SNAP for farmers markets in place, and that's why those 2 counties don't necessarily participate. Is that correct?
No, it's a little more complicated. Actually, New York State has a great program, Fresh Connects, which I think matches up to $50, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Definitely not on the radio. But you can't use more than one program. So either you do Fresh Connects or you do Market Match, but you can't have both. So we have had a couple Columbia and Dutchess County farmers markets use Market Match, but really at the end of the day, it was more worthwhile for them to go to Fresh Connects. What's great in Massachusetts is that we have HIP, and then you can also have a Market Match program running alongside of that. So it's almost disposable income for our SNAP users to use at farmers markets. So that's why Columbia and Dutchess County are not part of the program.
But as we've mentioned before on the show, there have been mid-year budget cuts to HIP, the Healthy Incentives Program, which is a state-run program
Yes.
of reimbursement, to the federal-run program of SNAP. So with already a diminished amount of HIP funding, that causes problems not only for people that are food insecure and relying on that money to get fresh, healthy food,
But the farmers that were growing that food as well.
Can you talk to us a little bit?
Yes.
You mentioned that a significant portion of the farmers market sales, as much as 30 to 50%, is coming from SNAP users. But can you tell us a little bit about the food insecurity situation in Berkshire County and with these counties that you're dealing with and the folks that are coming to the farmers markets that Berkshire Agricultural Ventures is trying to raise money to match for?
We have seen across the state of Massachusetts and even regionally that food insecurity is a growing problem. We have not stemmed the tide of the issues facing our food insecure population. And looking at the recent federal cuts to the LFPA program that was set up to buy food from local farmers and give them to be able to distribute them through food pantries and food banks, looking at the Food for Schools program that just recently got cut, we're talking about really about $12 million in cuts to farmers who have been growing for their whole community that aren't going to be able to have their products purchased and distributed at food banks, food pantries, and local schools. So that's going to be a huge hit. So we know that in the past 5 years, even since the pandemic began, that our food insecure population is growing. And now we're really cutting it off at the knees and in removing this funding that's going to hurt our community as a whole and is going to impact our farmers pretty significantly as well. And, you know, you make a great point, Monty, about the Healthy Incentives Program being cut. And when it was announced back in November, BAV ran an emergency campaign to increase our match at the winter farmers markets, specifically for produce farmers. So again, knowing how hard this was going to hit folks on SNAP and knowing how hard it was going to hit farmers who had already planned it. You know, farmers are planners, right? So they've already planned, they've grown, they've produced, and they're bringing it to the market. And then to have that kind of funding taken away so quickly, we wanted to kind of create a buffer during that winter farmers market. And now again, we're trying to double down and really create even more funding opportunities for matching programs at local farmers markets. One of the core reasons this program was created was really to create this kind of triple win for low-income shoppers, for farmers, and also for our farmers markets, because a lot of our farmers markets, those managers are working incredibly hard, but they're working a couple days a week, they're wearing many hats, and they don't have the ability or the wherewithal to go out and do that fundraising. So we really wanted to be able to support those fundraising efforts and make sure that market match was really strong in our area's farmers market. I think the really great example of this is at the Pittsfield Farmers Market run by Roots Rising, fantastic organization. It's a youth-led farmers market. And before Market Match was started, the Pittsfield Farmers Market was only able to offer SNAP matching for the first 2 hours of the day. So folks would have to arrive early and there would be a line and then it was over. And that was that was the only way they could kind of figure out to make the Market Match really, those dollars really stretch throughout the entire season. And since BAV started our Market Match Fund, Pittsfield Farmers Market now provides SNAP matching all day, every day throughout their farmers market season, which is just, fantastic.
We're going to have to go out there and meet those Roots Rising kids. They sound pretty awesome. We're going to have to come by.
Oh, my God. Well, join us on May 10th. We're having an event at the Pittsfield Farmers Market on opening day to celebrate the Market Match Fund. So we'll be there all day.
Love it.
Come on by.
And we're speaking with Rebecca Buzansky, the Executive Director for Berkshire Agricultural Ventures, who through the month of April is inspiring you to try to join their Market Match Fund that will match these SNAP dollars at these farmers markets, 10 Berkshire area farmers markets, including that one in Pittsfield that we mentioned, and North Adams and Great Barrington and Lee and New Milford, Connecticut, and more.
I'm always curious how everything compares to us, as can be seen by my first question being about New York. But now I'm going to ask about how this works. Is it different in Connecticut, in Litchfield County, than it works in the 10 farmers markets in Berkshire County?
It's not different how it works in Litchfield County. And I think we want to explore getting into Litchfield County more. This really started as a pilot, kind of a very small pilot program 4 years ago. And so we've been sort of building up as we've been going and learning as we go, right? Like that's what you would hope with a pilot project. We'll be looking at Litchfield County farmers markets more closely this summer, and which means visiting farmers markets. And luckily, that's what we love to do.
I mean, it is kind of the most fun. Every program wants to grow because that's just the nature of things. You want to do more with your program. But with the cuts to HIP, Have you had to, in a more exponential way, change your goals for this particular campaign in order to cover more ground?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I mean, we are definitely leaning into the advocacy side of this because I think HIPAA is such an important program. It's got such a proven track record, and we're hoping we've seen a small increase in the governor's budget, but we're certainly hoping for even more. But we can't play the role of government. Sometimes I wish I could these days, especially, but we can't sort of fill that void. What we can do is increase what we give out in market match funds, and that's why we're really running this campaign. I wish this program didn't have to grow because I wish we could really attack the underlying issues of food insecurity and food access. And actually, we would see the numbers decreasing instead of increasing as they have. But that's our reality right now. And so that's where we want to be.
And this match would be a 1-to-1 SNAP match, $30 per transaction for eligible households who are receiving SNAP in Berkshire County. Some of BAV, Berkshire Agricultural Ventures, statistics saying over 22,000 people in Berkshire County received SNAP benefits in 2024, 18% of the county's population. And this is an attempt to try to raise money to increase the purchasing power of the folks on SNAP and HIP to buy fresh, healthy local vegetables. And I think people often forget federal tax dollars create SNAP. State tax dollars create HIP, but they all get dumped right back into the economy of our local area. So it's an investment in the local economy, if you want to think it that way. A lot of times, SNAP food stamps gets a bad rap. Oh, people are going out and buying lobster with their food stamps.
I mean, they're not because it often doesn't qualify. But
yeah, but it is a way for your federal tax dollars to immediately return, and your state tax dollars to immediately return to the communities in which you live and support people who are food insecure while at the same time supporting our farmers.
Yeah.
So what is the goal here, Rebecca Buzansky, before the end of April that Berkshire Agricultural Ventures is trying to raise through this market match fund?
So we do fundraising all year round with corporate grants, foundations, and more. But in terms of the public-facing campaign, our goal is $30,000 in the month of April, and we are even hoping to come up to surpass that and have a stretch goal closer to $40,000 because really at the end of the day, as I said, it's about getting more money out to these markets.
We're just past the halfway point of April here and just past tax day.
My sister's birthday. She's a tax baby.
How close are we to hitting that goal? Where are we at?
We're pretty close to $30,000. So fingers crossed, we're really hoping to be able to next week announce a stretch goal of $40,000. We're so thankful. We're getting big and small donations, and just the response has been really tremendous. And I think and this is the same when we ran our emergency campaign in November as well. Like, this really is just such an important issue. And as you pointed out, it's an economic development tool for our farmers. It's about recirculating, putting money back into our farmers and investing in them. And it's really supporting our SNAP users, our low-income community, and supporting our farmers markets. So yeah, we're excited.
I have a sort of esoteric philosophy question. There's giggles. What we're seeing in government is a shift of the onus for public care being moved to the people as opposed to federal organizations. What does that pressure then do for organizations like yours? So I'm curious what your feelings on that shift are and how that reflects on BAV and what they'll be doing in the future.
No, it's a big question though, Khalees. It really is. I think the recent changes in the last couple of months are still just reverberating in our community-wide, probably nationally. And so it's hard to kind of say where it's going to land. The needs are so great, and we're all going to have to really double down and look at what we're doing and how we're doing things. And we're going to have to shift appropriately, because I liken it to the beginning of the pandemic, where it's like we all had to kind of, okay, the world has changed. I mean, our world has changed for sure. And now we've really got to figure out for us how we're going to support our farmers even better and smarter and in different ways, because there's so much need out there. So many great organizations doing such incredible work that we don't want to see wither away or disappear in any way. So I think it's a really hard time for individuals to make those choices. And I think it's a really important time for us to make those choices and really get behind organizations. For us personally, for our organization, for BAV, we do a lot of grant writing with farmers. We're seeing a lot of federal grants disappear, not show up, get frozen. So how are we helping our farmers with state grants and using those resources, et cetera? So there's just kind of a lot of those shifts. How are we in community with our other partner organizations, with our farmers, with our food producers, with our farmers markets, listening to what they need and then being responsive to that. That's kind of where we're at right now with it.
Berkshire Agricultural Ventures Market Match Fund, inspiring you before the end of April to make a contribution to match these funds dollar for dollar up to $30 per SNAP purchase at these 10 farmers markets. You can find out about all of the matching information and about how to donate by going to berkshireagventures.org. Go to offerings and then look for Market Match Fund, and you'll find a donation form there. Rebecca Busansky, Executive Director for Berkshire Agricultural Ventures, BAV. Thanks for talking with us about this program and this matching fund today.
Thanks. So happy to be here.
We'll link to that in the show notes too if you get the podcast.
Great.
Just saying. And look forward to more adventures with BAV and the Berkshires coming up with us before the end of the month. More farms, more better.
Also, more music, more better, especially when it's live in the studio, and a whole new album for us to dig into. All those things apply to Stefan Wiener, who joins us next.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Real Pickles, a worker-owned cooperative in Greenfield producing organic fermented vegetables sourced from Northeast farms. More information at realpickles.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413 and another extra special edition of Live Music Thursday. With us is Brooklyn-based but Northampton-born Stefan Wiener.
Stefan Wiener is a queer indie folk singer-songwriter mixing the immediacy of classic songwriting with the intimacy of a quiet conversation with a friend. He was named a top shelf finalist in NPR's Tiny Desk contest in 2024, earning accolades from the likes of Julian Baker, Robin Hilton, and more.
Stefan's work has received critical acclaim in publications like Forbes, The Advocate, American Songwriter, among many others. He has shared the story of his journey through medical mystery and back to music on various podcasts, such as This Is Actually Happening and Risk, and ours, I guess.
And you may recall us speaking with him and his father, Tom Wiener, back in February when he was playing the Parlor Room. But now we get to celebrate with him on the upcoming release of his album, How Lucky You Are. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
Nice. All right. Well, let's start out with a song.
All right. This one's called I Don't Miss You Anymore. I don't miss you anymore. I don't miss the Sunday mornings, making coffee with a splash, cutting everything in half. Honey, life was never boring. I don't miss you anymore. Taking your car out to the ocean, laughing up and down the beach. The watermelon was so sweet, but those memories are broken. Moment I thought you were right. I thought the sky was green. I thought that you were justified when you cried and swore and screamed. I don't miss you anymore. The contradictions, all the nice people that I knew who made an enemy of you. You were good at playing the victim, and now that I'm on your bad side, somehow the grass is so much greener. The bridges here are made of stone. I am seen and I am known. I don't miss you anymore. You're just a callous now. Oh, you gave me thicker skin. I keep the photos on my phone to remember where I've been. To remember where I've been.
Yay!
Stefan Wiener live in the studio. The new album is called This Is Actually Happening. It's due out on Friday, May 8th.
That's actually the podcast.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
no, it's
highlighted
a how lucky
you are. I highlighted, I emboldened the wrong thing.
It's all good.
Yeah, how lucky you are. May
I love
8th.
that podcast. Let's promote that.
Yeah. May 8th is when it comes out, though. That part's right?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then May 10th, you'll be back playing a show here in Northampton at the Parlor Room in your old haunts.
Exactly. With Hannah Mohan, local favorite.
Love Hannah
Who I
Mohan.
also went to high school with and found out that she had a bit of a crush on me in middle school.
What?
Despite my forthcoming homosexuality. But,
And her forthcoming
Pre-existing.
sexual spectrum.
sure, exactly. And then
It's
Blair,
Northampton after all.
Exactly. And then Blair Borax is also joining on the bell, who is a good pal from Portland, Oregon.
Cool,
Nice.
cool.
And you're back to celebrate with your dad, who we mentioned, Passover, but on the latter
right.
end of Passover,
Exactly,
right? That's a
exactly.
family tradition?
Yes, it really is my favorite holiday.
Cause Seder's the best.
It's
Seder's
so
cool.
fun.
Seder is so much fun.
And why do it on the first night when you can be a procrastinator?
No, that is great. That's great. That describes me. So I'll take that word forever.
When we talked with you in February, this album was shaping up. What how has the journey been since then, getting this ready to be birthed out into the world?
It's been really cool. I've put out 2 singles so far, and it's just, my favorite thing about songwriting, storytelling, what have you, is just when people approach me and tell me that something is resonating for them, or share their own similar story or dissimilar story, what have you. Just the fact that storytelling often begets more storytelling, and it's really a huge part of the fun.
You can totally spin a yarn in a way that is heartbreaking, though. That How Lucky You Are song, I Scared Him Off. I think you played it for us last time you were on
Yes.
here, and then I've been listening to it a couple times here in
thank you, thank
preparation for this. It's like, oh my word. Heartbreakingly beautiful
Thank you.
love song. Let's take a little break,
Okay.
and then we'll come back and we'll hear more from the album How Lucky You Are,
right.
due out on May 8th from Stefan Wiener, Northampton's own Brooklyn singer-songwriter.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Flashy summer storm, we're stepping on a thorn.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We're doing a little bit of live music Thursday
Yeah.
here today because our friend Stefan Wiener is in town to visit the family in Northampton from Brooklyn, and we get a little taste of the new album that's coming out in just a couple
He's in
weeks.
town for Passover, so he's passing through the studio.
Yeah, you didn't pass us over, and we appreciate that. The new album, How Lucky You Are, coming out on May 8th, and then coming back to Northampton to play the Parlor Room on May 10th. Can we hear another one from the new album?
Yeah.
Do it. If I have a moment to explain this one.
Please.
It comes from an experience I had at Yield Watering Hole in Northampton.
Aha, legendary place.
The
Exactly.
beer can museum.
Yes.
Right. So about 13 years ago, I was freshly 21 and close to graduating college, and I was waiting to get a drink at the bar, and this man struck up a conversation as I was waiting and said, "What are you planning on doing with your life?" He was probably at least twice my age, maybe more. And I said, "I want to pursue music." And he said, "That's a horrible idea." and
And it still is.
Yeah. But yeah, just I understood in him this jadedness and this sort of curmudgeonliness. And as I've gotten older, now a ripe 34, if you did the math, I don't want to become that person. I want to be like always ready for something new, always ready to jump into a new collaboration, a new project, and just enjoying my musical, social, romantic, whatever life, and not telling kids not to pursue their dreams.
Yeah.
So I wrote this song.
There's an episode of Portlandia where they diagnose Fred Armisen with early onset grumpiness. And
yes.
Nobody wants that.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this song is called Old Man. When did I get so bitter? Everything moves so fast. My closet's full of skinny jeans, and I don't know what half this new slang means. I'm living in the past. When did I get so tired? I used to go all night. Now my car turns into a pumpkin just when the music starts bumping. Something isn't right. I don't wanna be the old man sitting at the back of the bar. I don't wanna be the old man telling you how lucky you are. Saying when I was your age, I'll let it go to waste. Now I'm talking to strangers, drinking in the dark. When did I get so boring? Ordering the same drink. I've tried enough to know what's good. I've seen the shows, I've read the books, so I don't have to think. But nobody's getting any younger. Once you're gone, there's no coming back. So I can't ever lose that hunger. I gotta smile, I gotta laugh. I don't wanna be the old man sitting at the back of the bar. I don't wanna be the old man telling you how lucky you are. Saying when I was your age, I'll let it go to waste. Now I'm talking to strangers, drinking in the dark. I don't wanna be the old man sitting at the back of the bar. I don't wanna be the old man telling you how lucky you are. Saying when I was your age, I'll let it go to waste. Now I'm talking to strangers, drinking in the dark.
Cool.
That song
Thank
had
you.
so much Riz.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying.
I feel like I learned what that word meant like a week ago. But I'm trying as well.
Speaking of being an old man, 21 years ago, we just did the math. I went and spoke in your Northampton High School class.
That's right.
How was I? Was I old and curmudgeonly, or was...
No, of course not.
Thank God. What do you remember about that?
Well, my hair was down to my shoulders.
My hair was still bald.
Well, I know that you are just the biggest fan of Beau Flahive, and I had the great pleasure of getting to work with her and have her as a mentor.
She was the director of the Northamptons, retired
yes,
director
freshly
there.
retired.
Yes.
Yeah, so formative, and you celebrated us back then, and that really meant a lot to us kids.
What I remember is I brought my portable recorder, as I still want to do, and stood in the middle of all of you, and just the resonance of all of those human voices like surrounding me, I still kind of get chills. Thinking back to being surrounded by the vibrations of music and young people singing. It was great.
Because choruses are wonderful
They
and
really are.
powerful.
Yeah.
They just are. But there's a little bit of that in your chord phrasing. Like you lean towards like open chords, which is a thing that I quite love. It just adds a bunch of richness to a lot of your compositions. I was going to go somewhere with this question, but we're running out of time, so I feel like I should be cut off.
No. We keep mentioning, Stefan, that you live in Brooklyn now, but that you're from Northampton. Compare and contrast in the little bit of time we have left the music scene surrounding you in your current hometown versus your previous hometown.
Or talk about what about Northampton creeps into your songwriting that you can't kick out.
Okay, so I'll try to answer both those questions.
Great.
Both scenes are super inspiring, super, super talented folks in both places. Obviously, in Brooklyn, there are quite a few more. It's a little bit bigger.
It's a little saturated.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I come back here. I'm equally as inspired, and the caliber is equally high, and it's really cool to be from a community like that. Wherever you are, to have that in your back pocket. And as far as what creeps into my songwriting or my music for Northampton, I don't know. I think I grew up Unitarian Universalist, and that was super formative. So just like a love and acceptance for all people and all experiences, and trying to honor those experiences in my songs. And I think Northampton sort of has that ethos in general, even outside of the UU. So I try to approach the world and my music in the same way.
I have a weird one last question, just because I love the podcast. What was it like being on Risk?
Ugh, it's my favorite podcast ever. It took a year to put the story together.
Huh.
Drafting, and then during a heat wave in like July or August, I sat in my room, closed all the windows so that none of the sound would get in, and sweated it out with Kevin Allison on Zoom and me at a microphone. And right when the interview stopped, my phone shut off because it had overheated.
Oh, wow.
So cool.
You should listen to Stefan Wiener on that podcast and hear about your remarkable recovery coming back to the music after experiencing lots of physical difficulties. And you can experience the music for yourself when the album How Lucky You Are comes out on May 8th, and then experience Stefan Wiener live in person in Northampton on May 10th.
Yay!
Thank you for sharing your music with us here today.
Thank you
so
for
lovely.
having me back.
It's inspiring people to stay out tomorrow night. We'll have two bands that you can see very late on Friday, Film and Gender and Bella's Bar Talk.
And we'll do a little wine tasting at the Juice Box in Shelburne Falls. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll talk to you tomorrow on The Fabulous 413.